Hi, I'm Cherie Cornick, and this video is about making a swatch or swatches for Fair Isle knitting. Here's a swatch that I have worked on for a current project. I started out knowing that my gauge was probably not the same as the designer's, but I tried out a number of things. I wanted to, first of all, try out this pattern. It's not something I usually put at the bottom of a sweater or at the neck, but I wanted to see how it would work. I used, I have a little tag here with the needles and such that I used. I used a 1.5 needle with this because it was asking for a gauge of 9 stitches per inch. And then, although I don't ordinarily recommend changing needle size on the same swatch, I wanted to do it on this one to see what the increase would look like. So I've increased along here, and that certainly looks like it's a nice gentle increase, doesn't bunch up or doesn't kind of gather. Here I've used the same needle that the designer used. I didn't get the gauge of the designer, and one of the things that I was concerned about here is that the stars are not square. You can see this one's about 2 inches by 1.5, and one of the things that is pretty, well, it's 1 3/4, that's typical of Fair Isle knitting is that the stitches are square and the designs like this star would be square. So although I recommend doing the full repeat of the pattern, I decided to stop here. I blocked it while I still had it on the needles. Looked at the gauge, looked at the fabric that I have. The fabric's not bad. It's okay. But then I bound it off because it really isn't the needle size I want to use, and I wanted to start on a fresh piece. So before I go to that, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what I've done here. So this is to simulate knitting in the round. It's only knit on the right side, and the yarn is broken. Started here, I knit 2 stitches with both colors, then 1 stitch in the background, then the pattern, 1 stitch in the background, color, 2 stitches that have both pieces together. What that does is it helps me to keep good tension on these pattern stitches. Sometimes it can get looking a little messy, like over here. And if that bothers you, then all you have to do is grab that pair of yarn stitches and tighten them up. Just tighten them up. It'll make it look much neater. You'll be happier with it. And you'll still have your flat piece. The reason I do not do this all the way in the round is it needs to be flat in order to give you a good gauge swatch. It also needs to be flat for some other things that I use this piece for. I could try carrying the yarn, knit to here, carry the yarn back around, start knitting here again, carry the back. But what I found is I end up using more yarn, and I'm never going to take this apart anyway. It has too many uses for me. Let me show you another swatch I did for a different sweater and how I use it. So I use my swatch to try out button bands, to try out buttonholes. You can see I've tried a couple of different ones to try out the color of the buttonholes. In this case, I extended the swatch further so that it would simulate the neck, and I could try out the neckband. And I wanted to try this idea of a right turn in the corrugated ribbing rather than making it a blunt connection. One of the things that helps with this pickup is this extra background color stitch. So right here, I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. So right here, right along this part right here is where I would pick up those stitches. And as you can see, I've got a nice tight gauge there, nice consistent gauge. And it'll help me get my stitch to row ratio just right. Let me show you how I go about knitting this. This piece has not been blocked, so of course it's rolling up. I used a 2 and a US 2.5 for the previous body of the work. This one I used a 3, which is a 3.25 needle. I'm already happier with it because this is about 2 inches long. This is just about 2 inches wide. So my star is much more square, and the look of it is going to be what I'm interested in. I've looked at the gauge here. It's pretty close to 7 stitches per inch, or I'm just going to do a quick count here. I know this isn't blocked yet, but the way I keep my stitches spread apart, my blocked measurement is not a lot different than the unblocked. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stitches in 2 inches. It's going to give me 7 stitches per inch. Considerably different than what the pattern calls for, which is 8 stitches to an inch. So if I choose to use size 3 needles, which I like, with the stitch and row gauge that I have, which is this is also about 7 stitches. Let me see, let's try here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This one's 15 rows, which makes it 7.5 rows. 7 rows and 7.5, 7 stitches, 7.5 rows. That's close enough as far as I'm concerned. So this is probably going to be it, and if I do this, it's going to mean considerable changes to the pattern. But now let me just show you how I actually do knit this. My pattern here, I have my chart close by. I'm on this row of the chart, and it says that I have 1 pink, 5 turquoise, then 2 pink, 3 turquoise, 3 pink, 3 turquoise. So I start with my pink and turquoise held together. You may notice that this is only 1 thread here, and that's because the last row was just a solid color row. All right, I hold these 2 together, give them about that much length. Knit the 2 together, knit with the 2 yarns, knit with the 2 yarns. Now just do the background. I put a marker here so that it helps me see where that edge is and where my pattern starts. So I have one pink stitch, two, since this is only a 6-stitch repeat, I put markers every couple of patterns rather than trying to have them every pattern. You'll notice that I keep my stitches well spaced apart, not only in the solid, not only when I'm changing to another color, but even when I'm knitting the solid color. And I keep them well spaced on the right needle so that the yarn will stretch the length and will not bunch up. You can see how far apart they are. Actually, if you measured it, it's just about the width of a piece of yarn. And that's because this stitch, as you see it now, on the needle is only one leg of the stitch. Every stitch here has 2 legs. Only one is on the needle, on the front of the needle. So I'm leaving space for that other leg so that it can lay there between these stitches, and it won't bunch up. That's why my gauge is not significantly different, blocked and unblocked. All right, now I'm getting close to the end of this. Keeping all those stitches well spaced apart. And one last repeat here. You'll notice that I have enough stitches on here to do, before I say that. So here I am at the end of my pattern. Now, there's my marker. There's one background stitch. Both threads together for that stitch and the last stitch. I break them off. Slide everything to the other end of my circular needle here. If you could do this on double points, but as far as I'm concerned, double points aren't long enough to give you a really good size swatch. As you can see, I have 3 repeats of the biggest of these. And those 3 repeats are going to give me plenty of space to look at it, see if I like the colors, see if I like the design, see how it goes with the upper design. And I haven't gotten to it yet, but I have another one up here. I'm going to zoom this out just a little bit. So you can see I have a star, then this band, this puri, and then this kind of almost diamond shape, and then the same puri again. So as I continue up, I'm going to try this one, see what that looks like, and then continue the full chart, which will give me, at least 6 inches of swatch and plenty of room to do a button band trial. So now there's the row that I just completed. The row I just completed, and I slip all the stitches back to the other end, and I'm ready to do the next row. So the next row starts with 2 pinks. Well, first I'm going to start with my 2 threads together. Okay, my 1 background stitch. Turquoise is my background. Now I have there we go. Two pinks, 3 turquoise, 3 pinks, 3 turquoise, 1 pink, 2, 3. So I'm doing exactly the same thing that I was doing before, keeping the stitches well spaced apart, starting my every row at the right side of my piece and ending every row at the left side and breaking off the yarn. So I'm going to, I'm probably going to do this last row and then block it. And I'm going to leave it on the needles to block it, just so that I can make sure that the gauge is what I want it to be. If it is, then I'm going to continue knitting until I have my good size, about 6-inch swatch, and be ready to see what adjustments I need to make in the pattern in order to fit my gauge to the pattern that I want to knit.